Hi everyone, welcome to the Fight with Teddy Atlas. I'm Teddy Atlas III, and joined as always by my main man, my father, Boxing Hall of Famer, Teddy Atlas. How you doing, bud?
Good. I'm good. I'm with you. I'm here. I'm breathing air, and I'm talking boxing. It don't get that much better than that. I mean, and I'm talking to people out there that care enough to hear what we're talking about, hear me talk about it, hear you talk about it. To me, that's a privilege. It's a privilege. It's a blessing to have people out there that actually, do want to hear what you're saying, and especially the ones I can't help myself. I'm me, right? People come here for what reason? To talk boxing, to hear boxing, to have it broke, to learn something too. But if not to learn something, to share opinions, to match their opinion against ours, against mine, to see what I think of different breakdowns in boxing, different matches, what goes into it, the mental aspects, the physical, the technical, which era would have won, what generations were better, what's the difference of the generations, good records versus records of quality fights, not just padded records. Again, the mental terrain of what boxing is really about, no matter how physically equipped you might be. All of those things. Who do I like? Why did I like a fighter? Who they like, who their father liked, who their grandfather liked. All great things to make a great show. What do they not come here for? Or they shouldn't come here for? To see whether or not I pronounce the name right. Who the hell cares? If you're coming here for that, then you're what my son says. You're either a troll or go get a life. Or you're an English professor. God bless you. All right? I fell asleep during your class. And that's kind of obvious, isn't it? I was sleeping when you were giving up. Yeah, I was. Or I cut class. But I do know boxing. I do know life. I do know the fight and the battles that go on every day within ourselves. And I try to share that and connect the dots in life with the dots of fighting in general, the fight that we all fight for. I try to do that and share that with all the good people out there. But if you're here to see whether or not I am pronouncing my T's and E's, and then you came to the wrong place, because I'm not. I'm not really interested in that. I'm not purposely trying to get names wrong, but at the end of the day, again, if I was here for that, you guys made a wrong turn somewhere. You put the wrong channel on. I don't know what the heck. You had a long night last night. You woke up and you thought, let me put the fight on with Teddy Atlas and learn how to pronounce my words better. No, you go somewhere else, please. And if you're just a troll, if you're just not happy, and you gotta shoot a little something not nice to somebody, I feel bad for you. I do. Get out of your mom's basement, your grandma's basement. Get out of those Hanes underwear. Put some clothes on. Go outside. Get some fresh air. Take a deep breath. Go get a cup of coffee. Java, how's that? Get a cup of Java. You like the way I pronounce that? Let's talk boxing now. And by the way, when we get to the UFC fight tonight, I'm going to say it right now. Du Plessis. How do you like that? Du Plessis. And I'm not even French. Du Plessis. Do please continue, sir.
We will get into that UFC 319 a little bit later and some of those names. But we're going to start it off with the boxing. And what a card we had. A bunch of fights we previewed in the lead up. We're going to cover all of them. And that was in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. That was on DAZN pay-per-view. We're going to start off with Ray Ford. Ray Ford versus Abraham Nova. Now, Ray Ford, former 126-pound champion, now campaigning at 130 pounds. This fight was supposed to be against Anthony Kachachi. Kachachi had to withdraw due to injury. Nova steps in, late replacement. You nailed this one, bud. You nailed the whole entire card. We're going to get into it as we talk about each one of these fights. But Ford, a guy you've been high on for quite some time, and it showed why. But you broke down Nova perfectly as well. He's a game, tough guy. He's steady. He's consistent, workmanlike. You know what you're going to get from him. But just outgunned. The speed of Ford, the skill, the technique, just a different level. What'd you make of this fight? What'd you think of Ray Ford's performance?
I think we made a couple extra shillings, as our English counterparts, our English brothers and sisters across the pond would say, you know, and you know, I don't speak the King's English, but I do know what a shilling is. A couple extra bucks in your pocket. And you'll talk more about that later. You'll emphasize that. But we put a little parlay together. And the odds were not favorable to just pick who I thought would win because they were favorites. So we brought the odds down. You came up with a good parlay. And I picked the fighters to win by decision. And then the one that I thought would win by knockout, we did that rather than just pick them straight up where you had prohibitive odds that would not have given us back enough odds or the prop odds to win anything without laying something, you know, that we didn't want to lay.
Yeah, just to chime in there, we're going to post a picture of that winning ticket that you're speaking on. Our man Bennett will get it up there. But Ray Ford was a massive favorite going into this fight, to your point. He was a 12-1 favorite. But when you identified him to win by decision, that dropped it down to minus 120. And then the other fights we're going to get into in a little bit here, but same thing, Nick Ball by decision, plus 185 instead of a 6-1 favorite. Hrgovic, plus 150 by decision, again, instead of a 6-1 favorite. So you identified a beautiful value and put it all together. And again, we'll get more into that, but just wanted to chime in and add that in there.
Yeah, thank you, Bud, for explaining that, breaking that down for the people out there. So Ford... And the first thing I love about Ford and Nova is that, and you know, of course, continuing for 2 seconds on this, and I'll let it go. But I can pronounce both their names very, 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 very well. Ford, Nova, as in supernova. So, listen, Nova, solid guy, not a big puncher. Neither guy are huge punches. Ford can hurt you, can do more damage. He places his punches, gets a little more power. He places his punches really well. But Nova, just a good, solid guy. I figured he'd go the distance, give a good effort. He was aggressive. He threw a lot. He covered up and tried to walk Ford down the last few. He fell behind. Ford took control of the fight with good counter-punching, good selective offense, just placing punches magnificently, really beautifully. And see, that's why I like Ford. He's just a higher level fighter, more sophistication, just more science. I guess that's the best way I could say it, the way I want to say it. More sweet science. He's just more, he's developed at a higher level of fighting. Nova, good, solid guy, I'll say it again. Throws a lot, very game, very gritty, knows how to box. But Ford is really that level of just what we talk about with the sweet science. He can do a little bit of everything. He can counterpunch, he can set traps, he can fight in the trenches, he could use his legs if he has to. Just a good, really high-level fighter and former world champion. And I think he'll be a world champion again. He's that good. The difference, he picked the spots, he placed his spots, while Nova just threw. He threw punches, he threw uppercuts, he picked some spots nice. They both landed that punch, but Ford had more radar, much more radar, with the placement and the accuracy of his punches. At the end of the day, Ford took control around the 5th, 6th round, and then Nova made a run. He made a run the last couple rounds just with grit, just with volume of punches. But Ford made that adjustment. Once he saw, one of the commentators, and they did a good job, but one of the commentators said, Ford's slowing down the last couple rounds. I would disagree. I didn't think he slowed down. I thought what he did was he made a decision, Bud, to counterpunch because he knew that Nova was selling out, that he was just coming at him, just trying to get to him and close the show and catch up. So Ford did the smart thing. He said, I'll take what he gives me. I'll go into counterpunching mode. And that's what high intellectual fighters like Ford do. Okay, next one, go.
Yeah, that was... I just finished with saying this. Besides it was the right pick because it won, you also touched on Ford's demeanor before the fight. He's not a real seek and destroy, get you out of there, right? And also the one weakness or the one area he's not strong in is his lack of big-time punching power. And it all came to fruition and played out to exactly the way you said it would. So the next one it would take us of, as that completed leg one of your parlay, was the heavyweights. And it was an interesting clash heading into this one. We had Filip Hrgovic versus David Adeleye. Now, another fight that not only did you get the second leg and nail this one, but in the breakdown, spot on. I mean, you really, people should go back and watch the preview to this fight. I didn't see any differences in Hrgovic. Now, his second fight with Abel Sanchez. I will give Abel Sanchez credit. He did a tremendous job closing that cut, nasty cut in the second round. Didn't bleed anymore after that. But you said he's a basic guy, Hrgovic, coming in. It's basic 1-2s, stand straight up. He's there to hit him. And you broke down Adeleye perfectly, too. A guy who gets a little sloppy, a guy who could hold too much, but does have power. And Hrgovic was in control for the majority of this fight. And then in the 8th round, he had a little lapse. He had that flaw in defense technically. And that power of Adeleye showed up and almost had Hrgovic out of there. Unbelievable back and forth, bananas 8th round. One of the rounds of the year. And Hrgovic does what he does, though, but he finds a way to persevere. His chin, he continues to endure. And even when he looks like he's on empty with his gas tank, he sees it through to the final bell. In the end, he made it to the decision, got the unanimous decision. What'd you make of this one?
Yeah, Hrgovic, I'm not knocking anyone. I'm not. I'm just shooting it the way I always do, straight the way I see it. And that's what's great about this show. You come here to maybe match your opinion against mine, beautiful. Or maybe to learn something beautiful. Or maybe just to see, just to see what I saw and didn't see that you saw. And maybe pick up something from comparing notes. Whatever it is, for me, Hrgovic is a standard guy. Big heavyweight with an unbelievable chin, great heart, good amateur background, experienced. He is a standard guy. Until that changes, and I think you need a real teacher. I'm not trying to knock a guy who had Triple G and a guy who's had good fighters, and because that's people say, "Oh, Teddy, how you gonna knock Abel Sanchez?" I'm not here to knock anyone, and I'm not knocking him. What I'm saying is you can't take for granted because a guy was with a great fighter that he's a teacher. He might be a good conditioner. A guy that, as my son said, he did a great job closing that cut. He's a good cut man. All of that, good corner man. But I haven't seen yet evidence of teaching. I haven't seen Hrgovic change. I see a big guy again. I see a game guy, a great chin. I see a guy who's not hard to hit, though. I see a guy who's very standard. I'll explain. Teddy, what do you mean by standard, conventional? Jab, right hand, left hook. That's it. That's it. I don't see any creativity in his combinations. I don't see any real change in the arsenal or addition to the arsenal. I see a big guy. I'm going to repeat myself purposely. A big, experienced game guy with a hell of a chin who throws a jab, straight right hand, and left hook. Now, the straight right hand almost knocked out Adeleye in the 8th round. And then Adeleye came, like my son said, what a round. What a round. Round of the year. That should be up for round of the year. Incredible. I see that, but what I don't see is a guy whose defense has improved. Hrgovic being a big guy, he's a big target. I don't see that target move. I don't see that target get out of the way of the punches that were coming his way. The jab of Adeleye, big mistake. Adeleye, you got a good jab. If Adeleye used that jab more, I don't know what would have happened, but I tell you what, if he threw it 4 times, 4 landed. If he threw it 6 times, 6 landed. All I know is if you got a heavyweight and he's getting hit that easy with jabs, which Hrgovic was, you're going to get hit with something behind that jab sooner or later, like you did with Dubois. And that can't be forgotten. I haven't seen that improved. I feel for Hrgovic to go to the next level of heavyweights. Look, he'll fit right in. He'll fit right in. He's an experienced guy who's fought a lot of good fighters. He'll fit right in. And he's game, he's tough. But to win, to go to that next level, the level of the Usyks and the level of this young kid Moses, and Parker and all those guys, you have to improve. You have to add something called teaching to your training camp. You have to be more than just big and tough and strong. You have to be a little more elusive. You have to be a little more creative. For me to put you at that next level, you're right at the level just below that. You're a heavyweight contender. You're there to challenge for the heavyweight. But to win, you're not there. Not until that happens. Those things happen that I just talked about. Now, as far as the fight, he won the fight because his chin was great, because he's big, he's strong, and because of his experience. And Adeleye lost the fight because of his lack of experience. He's not experienced. Why did I pick this fight the way I picked it on the parlay? Because I thought that Hrgovic is a little overrated as a puncher. He's a good puncher, but he's not a puncher. He's not a puncher in the top level of heavyweight punching. I know he landed a good right hand, perfect, and it dropped Adeleye. I know it looked beautiful, but he's not quite that TNT puncher. I thought that Adeleye would have a chance to survive and have a chance to kind of hold Hrgovic off because he could hit him with something. And he did. And that's why I said I knew it would be a little tough getting to the last bell. I was a little worried about this one. So were you. You told me this is the one I'm worried about, bud, in the parlay. This one. I said, yeah, we're gonna need to keep fasten our seatbelts, keep our fingers crossed that we get to the final bell. But I bargained on something. And what I bargain on is what I just said. And the reason why Adeleye could not win this fight is because he is not mature enough. He is not consistent enough. And that all comes down to not having enough experience. That's what, he gets more experience. If this kid Adeleye, and he could use a teacher too. I'm not leaving him out. I'm not leaving him out and picking on Hrgovic. If Adeleye could learn something, get taught more, how to use his jab more, how to be more complete in areas that he's still not complete. And he could get more experience. And with that experience comes what? Confidence, maturity. If he gets that with his power, look out. Look out. That guy could be a real problem. Instead of just a guy that, don't get hit with that one bomb, with that he's winging him from here and there. And if you don't get hit with that one bomb, don't worry. You got him. Box him. No, he could be more than that. But he needs the same thing Hrgovic needs, I think, to be more than just a contender. He needs teaching. But anyway, at the end of the day, Adeleye's lack of consistency, which comes with lack of experience, lack of maturity, lack of confidence, that is what led to him losing this fight. And I give all the credit to Hrgovic. Jab, right hand, what a chin. In that 8th round, if he lands one more of those hooks, one more, maybe that's it. Maybe we got an unbelievable upset and Adeleye knocks him out. And I'm talking about, it's not like he was dipping and dapping and moving and slipping and sliding. He was standing straight up like an oak tree in a freaking hurricane. And when the hurricane was over, he was still standing. I was like, wow, that guy's got some chin.
Yeah, absolutely. Some fight, some breakdown by you. I think you just nailed it. When I was watching with Adeleye, you described it perfectly. The lack of experience, the lack of maturity, which then leads to lack of confidence. He just seemed to me like his focus was weaning. His concentration wasn't there. And it felt like mentally he was starting to give in. And maybe he was going to be out of there until he had a little success, which kept him back in it. And maybe if he got a rematch in the next go-around, he'd be a different guy, and it could be a different result.
Rematch. Go watch Rocky 1. And that's what you're going to see in that one. Rematch with the power and the way that he hurt him. Rematch. No, go back and watch Rocky 1 when Apollo Creed says at the end, bud, ain't going to be no rematch. Ain't going to be no rematch.
Yeah, I don't see it being a rematch, but when you finish up with Hrgovic, I think about Joe Joyce a little bit. Just that every time with not having that defense and being a big target, a piece of him is left in there. And he's that rock that's deteriorating. And how much more until he can't stand up and that great chin is put to the test. But he's always fun to watch. You know what you're going to get. It was a fun fight and a great pick by you. Again, that was a minus 600 favorite Hrgovic that you identified to win by decision at plus 150. So that was the second leg of the parlay. So we'll keep it moving.
Still alive, you and me. You in Vegas, I was here. Let the people share what was going on. I want them to share. We were still alive.
We had a little intermission in between the fights with the parlay there as they snuck in Hayuto Tsutsumi, and he had fought Cash Ashfaq. Now, this is the ring ambassador. First fight outside of his home country, Japan. This fight, again, was in Saudi Arabia.
You just said, say that again. Say that name again.
Tsutsumi.
I'm not going to sue you. No. I never sue you, bud. Even if you don't pronounce it right, I would never sue you. But the guy, the opponent, what was the opponent's name?
Cash Ashfaq.
That is one name I'm not going to try to pronounce, and I think you can figure out why. Go ahead. Let the fans figure out why. I will not try to pronounce. I will just say his first name. His first name is Quay, right?
We got Hayuto Tsutsumi versus Cash Ashfaq.
Okay. I'm going to leave till 8. Okay, go ahead.
All right, so we've talked about Tsutsumy's brother. He fought on one of the ring cards, the younger brother. This was my first exposure getting to see him. Didn't last long, only 3 rounds. To me, this was complete cat and mouse from the get-go. Ashfaq had negative power. You could tell he wasn't going to keep him off of him. It was just a matter of time till Tsutsumi was going to get to him and get the finish, which came in the 3rd round. It's hard to gauge sometimes when you have a fight of this level and this kind of mismatch, but I wasn't blown away by the prospects or the potentials. I get he's only 26 years old, only his 8th pro fight. Am I missing something here? Were you more impressed than I was? And what do you think of Tsutsumi moving forward?
I think I want to see him fight somebody that's a little bit more substantial. I think that so far, I'm very impressed by his matchmaker. I'm not being a wise guy. I'm being honest. That's why people come here to watch this show. They're going to get the truth. They might not like it. They might like it. They might want to argue it. But either way, that's what they're going to get. And with Hayato Tsutsumi, listen, he's young. He looks physically, strong enough. I got to see him with somebody more substantial. He's been very well managed so far. They've been very careful with their selection of opponents so far. And until they step up a little bit, I can't give a fair assessment and analysis of his future. Is that fair, Bud?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Definitely need to see a better step up to better gauge that. And I'm sure we're going to have to see that moving forward. So
I can tell you what he's not. He's not Inoue.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you talk about the talent and the elite talent coming out of Japan right now, whether it's Inoue or Nakatani and others, I didn't see that. I didn't feel that. But again, 26 years of age, only 8 pro fights. Yeah. Let's give him some time.
And let's be fair, Teddy Sr., who is Inoue? Not too many people. And I got you. You're right. That's fair. But let me see him fight, somebody, a little more, a little better.
No, I'm with you on that. And before we get into the rest of the fights on the card, I'm going to take a quick pause, just give a thank you to our sponsor, Athletic Greens. Athletic Greens introduces the new AG1 Next Gen. It now includes 5 clinically studied probiotic strains shown to support digestive and immune health with added vitamins and minerals. They've also now have new travel pack designs resulting in a much easier pour to improve the customer experience. So whether you guys are looking to boost your energy levels, support your immune system, or address gut health, Athletic Greens is the way to go. Simply visit athleticgreens.com/atlas to claim your special offer of 10 free travel packs with your first purchase. All right, bud, so we're going to finish off the last 2 fights on the boxing card there in Saudi Arabia. We had the WBA featherweight champion Nick Ball defending his title against Sam Goodman from Australia. And I'm going to stay with the theme. I've been saying it all episode. Another one, you nailed it. Not just the winner and the result, but the breakdown. I didn't know Sam Goodman coming into this one. I'm sure a lot didn't. He never fought outside of his home country in Australia until this one. And you nailed what he was. You said this would be an interesting test for Ball. You said that he was going to give him some trouble with his boxing and not running around and moving all night. Just being able to stay in the pocket, pick his spots, change angles. He did that. And his length, to me, stood out right away. The difference in his size and his length advantage over Ball was going to give problems to Ball all night, and it did. And he had his moments, but Ball does what Ball does. He comes forward. He made some adjustments. He gets inside. He keeps working. And a lot of times, he outworks guys. In the end, I thought it was super close going into the last quarter of the fight. I thought Ball did take those last few rounds in the championship rounds. So I did not have a problem with Ball getting the decision. But I did have a problem with how wide the decision was and how disrespectful it was to Sam Goodman. He deserved to be treated better than that. 117-111, 118-110. Again, just too wide. But just want to hear your thoughts on the decision, on the fight, and just overall what you think might be next now for Nick Ball.
Yeah, I thought I thought they treated this Aussie, this game Aussie, from Australia. I thought our brothers and sisters across the pond, well, I shouldn't say that because the judges weren't all from there. But I didn't think they treated them on the scorecards properly at all. I love Ball. I have no problem Ball coming down the stretch, championship rounds, taking a fight. But to have him that far up, it's like they made up the cards before the fight started. I mean, that just wasn't right. I wouldn't be right if I stayed here and I just didn't say anything about it, even though I love Ball. I wouldn't be right. I wouldn't be, I wouldn't be worth anything if I didn't have the care and the truth in me to point out something that should be pointed out. Those scorecards, they were just, it was wrong. I thought it went the way I as my son said, that it would go. The one thing Goodman's missing is power. Neither one have big power. Ball imposes his physicality on you eventually in that way. Even though, he was the guy, you could see that Goodman was, as my son said, was bigger, taller. But part of his game is to impose himself, his will, his physicality on you with pressure. He's not a huge puncher, but he is the better puncher in this fight and was the better puncher in this fight. Goodman lacking that firepower, really lacking it. I thought that would be his undoing in the end, Bud. And I said it on this show last week, that he just wouldn't have the firepower down the stretch to slow down Ball enough. That would come to task. That would come to show that his lack of being able to just, hurt Ball, put him in his place a little bit, do a little more damage, that down the stretch, that would work against him. Because that's where Ball would come on. I felt that Ball would be behind in the first half of the fight. And on my calculation, he probably was early on. Then he started coming on, which is what he needed to do, which is his temperament, his MO. That's what he does. But Goodman, not only did he sit in a pocket, I thought that was his undoing a little bit. I'll tell you why, Bud, from my eyes. He used his legs really well in and out to control range. He didn't run, but he controlled range really well. What he didn't do, he put the peanut butter on the bread, but he didn't add the jelly. He stepped out. If you're going to have a peanut butter sandwich, you have to have jelly. Or put it on the crumpets over there with my beloved, brothers and sisters across the pond. Either way, you got to put the jelly. The jelly is the counterpunch. He stepped out. That was the peanut butter. He made Ball reach. He made him lunge in spots, but he didn't counter enough in those spots when he had him wide open to a counter. He should have done a little bit more with that being Goodman. But he did a great job of using the jab to set the table, picking spots, putting the right hand behind the jab in spots, mixing it up. Like my son said, in spots he'd stay in front of you, get off. Then he would get out, set up counters. Again, just pick spots, change angles a little bit. He did a tremendous job boxing, using what he used to get to this fight, to be undefeated. His boxing IQ, his jab, his combinations, all of that. He did it beautifully. He understood what his identity was. The last 3-4 rounds, he forgot his ID. He forgot his identity. He started sitting in front of him too much, where it allowed Ball to have just what he needed. A guy in front of him who he could impose his physicality on, who he could hit with the uppercut, who he could hit to the body, who he could fight the kind of fight that Nick Ball, the ball of fire, the wrecking ball, loves to fight. Right in front of him. He gave him that a little bit too much at the end. And why? He forgot his ID. Or maybe the pressure of Ball, the relentlessness that you talked about, that he brings to the table, that he brings to the match all the time. Maybe that finally wore down Goodman enough to make him stand in front of him, to wear his legs down, to make him more vulnerable. Again, to stay in the geography that he wanted him, right there. Whatever the reason, that was the outcome. That was the result. I thought that Ball won the championship rounds. I actually had Goodman ahead going into the late rounds, towards the late rounds. And I said to myself, Ball needs to win these championship rounds, which I think he will, to keep his title. It turned out, I'll stand by what I thought. It turns out the judges had a whole different plan that was never going to get close to that. But I think I covered everything. At the end of the day, yeah, Goodman's lack of pop probably did come into play because Ball had enough left when he needed to have it left to come on the way he came on. It was a good fight. It was a solid fight. It really was.
Yeah, it was a great fight. That was another great breakdown by you. I thought, you made a great point just now. I started off by saying the size and length of Goodman. You could see the difference because Ball was falling in short, and he wasn't countering enough that he should have, Goodman. But I thought, and I was surprised at certain points in the fight, that Goodman was doing what nobody does to Ball. He was bullying the bully. He was starting to back him up. He was starting to fight his fight. And maybe some of that success, I don't know what the corner was telling him, that he started to fight the wrong fight. And to your point, stayed in front too long and fought the exact fight that Nick Ball needed and wanted, and backfired on him.
But that's a great point. I think you're right on the button with that. It could have been that. The last thing I add to it is this. The reality from a trainer's perspective, my perspective. Ball, the reason why I thought Goodman was ahead at a certain point in the fight was that Ball's offense wasn't as consistent as Goodman's. Goodman, I'm not saying it wasn't as good. It's harder, it's more explosive when it's there, but it was in spurts. That's how Ball fights. He's a ball of fire. He fights in spurts with sparks, and they're terrific. You love it, those sparks, those spurts. But then there's dead spots where he's not doing something. And those dead spots, Goodman was doing something. It wasn't as fiery. It didn't catch your eye as much. It wasn't as explosive. But it was consistent. He was moving his hands throughout the rounds more consistently than Ball was. Ball was fighting in spurts. Now, those spurts won some rounds for him. I'm not arguing that. But it also lost some rounds for him. And it allowed Goodman, with his consistent flow of offense, moving his hands a little more regular, to be, I thought, in a good position to have a shot, to have his hand raised at the end of the day. But a combination of the judges and, more importantly, Ball winning the championship rounds did not allow that to take place.
No, absolutely. And the last thing I would say, Goodman's footwork, it reminded me of Dominic Cruz a little bit. That different style of in and out. The great, obviously, former world champion UFC fighter. The one thing that stood out too with Ball, but when he switched to southpaw, I thought Goodman was starting to have some success and land some right hands. I thought Ball is a lot more comfortable and had way more success when he was in the orthodox position. But anyway, we covered that one pretty thoroughly. In the end, another great pick by you. That was Ball instead of minus 600 favorite. Ball plus 185 to win by decision. So that was like three of
some ballsy picks. How about some ballsy picks? I never curse. That's okay, right? That's fair. That's okay. I don't curse on the show, but that's not too out there. Some ballsy picks.
Yeah, when you get 25-1 back, you got to have a little bit of that. So to get it back, it all came down to the final fight, the fourth leg.
You were nervous. You were nervous, bud. You were nervous because we got so close. We won 4 in a row. How many we win?
We won 3 in a row going into the final bout now.
Here we are, right? This is where we are. 3 in a row. Everybody, just picture this. 3 in a row, and my son's in Vegas, and he's a little nervous. He's a little antsy. He's like, oh, boy, we got to get this one. And we had well, you take it from there. We had the under, but you take it.
Yeah, so this was the heavyweight fight, highly touted, number 1 prospect, only 20 years old, Moses Itauma, fighting 37-year-old journeyman, former world title challenger, Dillian Whyte. And another one that you nailed. Now, to what you were just saying going in, I don't know if I was nervous or becoming more confident as you were texting me right before the fight began. This was the last leg in the last fight, and I don't like to speak and like to be pretty quiet about it.
Superstitious.
And you were over there texting me, this ring walk is going to be longer than this fight, this national anthem.
And that's not my way. When we bet, I am like him. He's like me. He got it from me. Superstitious. We don't say nothing. We button up. We shut our mouths. We try not to get in the way of a victory, and we just sit there quietly. We don't want to screw anything up. But this time I was a little out of character. You're right.
Yeah, and that I didn't know how to take it. And you said the Saudi national anthem will be much longer than this fight. You kept going, more and more text, and how quickly this would end, and you were right. I mean, It wasn't a contest. It wasn't a fight. Some might say Dillian Whyte looked like an amateur in there. Some might say he looked like a shot fighter in there. Didn't really get a time to even settle in. Itauma does what he's been doing to everybody, destroying people. First, second round knockouts for the most part. This one, again, only a minute plus into the first round. But it's hard for some to gauge, but the prospects of Itauma, right? When you're in there versus a guy, and we didn't get to see a lot, right? And you want to see more. I got to see some things I think that stand out. I got to see him still thinking, right, and using feints. Got to see that power.
Hey, there are some English whizzes out there. Don't forget, there are some English professors watching here. Is it Itauma or
It's Itauma. If I said Itauma, I got excited, but it's Itauma. Okay. We'll make sure we get this one right now.
Hey, it's no problem for me if you Itauma, tomato, tamale. It's fine with me, bud. Either way, but there are those people out there that will be watching the pronunciation, because I'm sure that they pronounce everything perfectly. The problem is they probably don't know a left hook from a meat hook. That's where the problem comes. To me, the only thing I try to do right is pronounce jab properly, and hook, and right cross. Did I get those good?
You got them good.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you, bud.
Moses Itauma. But what I was saying, bud, is you could see the power. You could see the explosion. You could see a thinking fighter using some feints to undress Dillian Whyte. And then when he hurt him, he finished him, right? So I don't want to get too carried away, but what did you gauge from this fight? What did you learn if you didn't already know about Moses? And is he worth all of this hype at only 20 years old? Is he the most hyped up guy since, you tell me? But Turkey is saying he wants Usyk versus Itauma next. Just want to get your take on this fight, and then we could talk about what do you want to see potentially next for Moses Itauma.
He's special. He's 20 years old. He's a good kid. He seems to have a good head on his shoulders, not just boxing wise, but life wise. Seems to have people around him in his life. He's got a great promoter in Frank Warren, but he seems to have, I don't know his family, but I would think he's got family. He's got people around him that seem to have done a really good job with him as a human being. Forget about fighter. Again, he just seems like a kid you want to root for. A kid that's not over the top with the way he behaves and everything. He's grounded. He's humble. He really makes a good presentation of himself. And he's special. He's big. He's young. He's got fast hands. He's got fast feet. Not only his hands get to the target fast, his feet bring you to the target fast or bring him to the target fast like a young Pacquiao did. I mean, he closes gaps really fast, really fast. Like 1 second you think he's not there, and bang, it's like driving a car. You got to be careful with this guy. It's like driving a car, bud. You know me. I'm always on you and Nicole about driving. Even now that you're older and you got kids, everything, I'm always like, I won't leave you alone. I'm paying in the you-know-what. Like I was saying, don't just look in the rearview mirror. Turn around, turn your head, and make sure somebody's not in a blind spot. Make sure there's no. But even then, I say, if you look down the road, there might be some madman coming at 120 miles an hour that you don't realize he's coming that fast. And by the time you turn your head back and then you make the change to the lane, he's there. That's him. He's that guy coming 120 miles an hour. You turned around, you looked down in the back of the road, and you didn't see anybody coming. So you turned back, and now in that 2 seconds that it takes now to change lanes, he's there because he was going 120 miles an hour. That's Itauma or Itauma, whatever the hell it is. He's fast. Whether he's Tuma or Tama, he's fast. And you got to realize that when you fight him. His hands only are going to get to you in a quick fashion. But as I said, his feet will bring his hands to you really, really fast. He has good eyes. He's calm in an uncalm environment. That's what makes him a great finisher. He sees everything. He knows where to go, where not to go. He doesn't waste anything. That's amazing for me, how this guy doesn't waste anything. Oh, my God. He is well-trained. Ben Davidson and his other coaches that were there before Ben Davidson, give them credit. They've taught this guy good technique. All the technique he's going to need to go with that fabulous ability that God gave him, that his parents bequeathed on him in genetics. You can have all the ability in the world, but you have to have the technique to use it properly. He has that too. He's been taught really well. I don't see anything he don't have. Maybe he could keep his chin a little lower. I would probably say put your chin down a little bit, but come on, now I'm nitpicking. Nobody's even gotten near his chin. They haven't had a chance to get near it. I don't know what else I can add to what I just don't want to be missing anything. But he places his punches. His hands are heavier than they look. They look like feathers. They're so fast. But meanwhile, the result of them touching you is like there's bricks in them. They come at you like they come at you like it's feathers, but with the results of bricks. He's got heavy hands, and you don't get that combination of speed and power too often. Mike Tyson had it, but he's a different kind of guy. He's got longer arms than Tyson. He's got a different approach, different options than Tyson had. Tyson's option mostly was make you miss, make you pay, come forward, break you down. This guy could step out on you and do it, step in. I mean, he's got terrific footwork. I don't see anything negative about him. Sometimes you see a guy like that, it's too good to be true. You say, well, he's going to screw it up himself because of his lack of character or his lifestyle outside. I don't see that. I mean, there's no evidence of that. Matter of fact, there's the evidence of what I started this about. What a terrific kid he seems to be. Listen, he's got to fight somebody who's going to give him some rounds. How old was Dillian Whyte?
Yeah, Dillian Whyte, 37 years old.
Okay, he's got to. I'm not going to say no more about that. Dillian Whyte's had a terrific career. He's made a lot of money. He's been in a lot of wars. He's given a lot of pleasure to people out there. He's had a good career, and he's fought everybody. But at this point, there was no worse guy you could put a 37-year-old guy who's been in a lot of tough fights in there with than a talented young kid like this. I mean, that's where when you're old, you get older fast with a guy like this. He needs to get some rounds, yes, to answer some questions that he still has to have privately inside his own heart and mind. Can I depend on myself? I'm sure he's going to give you the right answers, and he's going to believe it. He's confident. Yeah, when the time comes, I'm going to win the title. He said that. Somebody asked him. I love the way he answered it. He said, I can tell you, when I do fight for the title, there is no doubt. I am winning it. That's great. But he's got to get some, just the experience to back up that confidence. To tell him, yeah, you're right. You can depend on yourself in all situations. All situations. So, who would I like to see him with? Believe it or not, I'm going to surprise you. But then once I say, you know boxing too well, you're not going to be surprised. But at first, people out there will. I'd like to see him with Hrgovic. Really, because Hrgovic showed me a terrific chin. I don't know. I'd love to see if that chin could hold up to this kid. And I'll tell you right now, I don't know if any chin can. So that's where Hrgovic might have to be taught before that fight a little defense or more defense. But having said that, Hrgovic, a big guy, an experienced guy, a guy who's right there as far as top heavyweights. Before you go to any title fight, I'd love to see that fight. I'd love to see that for him. He might get some rounds out of that, whatever. I would also wait on a Usyk fight. I know that Turki Al-Sheikh is talking about that, and that might come to pass with the money and everything else. But for me, if I'm with Moses, I'm saying let him get one or two more fights before we go to the top of Mount Everest. Let's climb a couple more peaks. Let's go. There's a mountain over there, and there's another one over there. Let's climb them, and then we're ready for the ultimate. So you got Parker, who's of course got one of the belts. He's tremendous, experienced guy, and not only experienced guy, Parker, but he is at his best. You know what I mean, bud? He has gotten to that sweet spot in your career where you're clicking on all cylinders. You know, with Andy Lee, with everything, he is in the best position of his life right now. The way he's fighting, he is a Parker who is parked in the best neighborhood he's ever been in. He is at his best now. So you got him. You got You got Kabiel, who I love, who I identified before he got on the scene, before, he became a top contender. I identified as a guy that you better look out for. And you better look out for that guy. That guy's real. But I would go in those directions before Usyk. I don't want to see the Usyk fight with him. And I'm very honest about the reason why. I want to see Usyk go off to the sunset. I'm not saying he can't beat him. I'm not saying that. I wouldn't go against Usyk with anybody. He is that special. But I think at this point of his career, after Usyk gets through his next fight, let him go off into the sunset. What's wrong with that? We haven't had an undefeated heavyweight champion in the history of the sport except for Rocky Marciano. What's wrong with having a good ending? I don't see anything wrong. He earned the right. He also earned the right to fight whoever he wants, and knowing the temperament of Usyk, he'll say, bring on the youngin'. The youngin'. Bring him forward, please. Please. So maybe that'll wind up being. That's my feeling.
Yeah, no, it makes all sense, and I'm glad you said that, because what I was going to say is I think about what you always say, that a fight doesn't begin until there's something to overcome, until there's resistance. Otherwise, it's a sparring match. It's a physical exhibition. And right now, that's all it's really been for Moses. We don't know until we know. And I like to see him tested first with some resistance before throwing him in against Usyk. But time will tell. We know he'll be scheduling something soon, and everybody will be excited to watch Moses Itauma, I should say. And that wraps up all the boxing coverage, bud. That wrapped up our 4-leg parlay. That was it. The under 4.5 rounds at minus 105. It only took one round, and that clinched up a winning ticket of 25-1 odds. So we'll show that ticket there, and we'll be back with some more tips moving forward. Be on the lookout for some more previews and predictions. But before we wrap up this week's episode, we're going to get into the MMA, UFC 319 for all the MMA fans out there. Before we get into that main event, the highly touted fight between Chimaev and du Plessis, I wanted to touch on two devastating knockouts on the undercards, back-to-back. And our man Richie told us, heading into this, there was only 8 spinning back elbow knockouts in the history of the UFC going into last night. And we got 2 in a row, so now there's 10 total. And that was Carlos Prates in round 1 over Jeff Neal, and then Lerone Murphy against Aaron Pico, also round 1. Just want to give you a chance, bud, to touch on those devastating back-to-back spinning back elbow knockout.
No, Bud, you know what I appreciate? Look, you see, they both got hit in a terrible spot on the temple, and it took them out with an elbow, not even a fist. An elbow, worse, bone. But, so you saw how devastating they were. But what you almost lose appreciation for, because you see the end result, how brutal it is, how devastating, how sudden, right? So we concentrate on that, but we forget the timing, the execution, the perfect timing and athleticism and nerve that it took for these fighters to complete that move and to deliver that elbow. That's all I really wanted to say about it, was that we see the brutality of the result. And we're human, we focus on that. But we forget about how beautiful the setups were, how well executed, how extraordinary they were. Under those conditions, in a cage, with a dangerous guy in front of you, to turn your back and believe in yourself, that you could do a spin and come out and land it right in the right spot in that kind of situation, you have to be impressed by that. That is extraordinary. It takes extraordinary people to do, not just tough people, to do something like that. So that would be my only point to that. And how amazing was that the Prates one came right at the bell, right at the bell. Wow. And then, of course, the Murphy one, what was so impressive to me about that was that Pico was he was kind of becoming a boss in that first round. Like he was walking him down. He was like he was looking to take control of him, of really, bossing him around. Like I said, walking him down, looking to impose his physicality and his will on him. And then Murphy, again, pulls off that fabulous move, that explosive, athletic move, and does that. I guess the thing from a trainer's point of view that I would add to this one is that you don't want to be predictable. Pico was being predictable. He was being overly aggressive. He was walking in the same way. He was almost starting to assume, I'm just going to get to Murphy. I'm going to get to him. And he forgot about what we should never forget in life, that there's another side. There's something else that could happen that you should never start to take for granted. I'm just going to walk in and get the guy. And that's kind of what he did. He was just walking in, got reckless, forgot that there could be something to worry about. And that something to worry about was there in the form of an elbow right here on the temple. Don't get hit on the temple. Don't get hit on the temple with elbows.
No, brutal stuff. And thoughts and prayers to both Jeff Neal and Aaron Pico. Scary stuff afterwards. So hope they're all right. And that'll take us, Bud, into the main event. We're going to talk about the middleweight championship. Dricus du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev. Now, last week we talked about a fight, also middleweights, Fluffy Hernandez versus Roman Dolezal, and how dominant and one-sided in a dog walk it was by Hernandez. And this was the same and then some of just pure domination. I don't think du Plessis was on his feet for more than maybe a minute, if that, total, the whole entire fight. Khamzat got his hands on him first 5 seconds in, got him to the ground, and did what he does, controls guys, took away any hope that du Plessis had. I mean, just demoralizing the way he continued to just ragdoll him and dump him back onto the floor over and over again. It felt like for quite some time, a lot of people thought Chimaev, it was only a matter of time before he'd become world champion. Now he's champion. Very impressive. Guess the question is there anybody out there that could slow down and beat this guy?
I agree with you. We love that Hernandez, don't we, Bud? That we watched.
Oh, he's fun to watch.
He really is. Here's where I differ with you just a little bit. You're right. He dominant, just kind of like Hernandez. We didn't, nobody expected that to be that dominant. But the Hernandez domination was a little bit more exciting. Because it was the domination with not just on the floor with grappling and wrestling and where he suffocated the other guy and gave no shot. It was with striking. It was with a combination of things. It just had a little bit more theater to it, excitement. There was almost no theater to this one with Chimaev because he did it in his way, in his fashion, in his ID, what he identifies himself as a great grappler, great wrestler. I mean, he got, I always talk about geography. He got it to the geography. I don't think there's any argument for du Plessis. How you like that, Bud? Du Plessis. For du Plessis, who I love. I love both of them. Take nothing away from du Plessis. But for him, he had to defend the takedowns. He couldn't do it. That speaks to Chimaev, not only how good he is when he gets you on the floor, which I think we all know already, but how good he is to getting you to the floor. It's one thing to be great when you got a guy on the floor grappling and wrestling and showing all those skill sets, but you got to get him there. I've seen guys that are great at that, but they can't get the guy there. I've seen Adesanya beat guys that were great at that. Because Adesanya, when he was at his best, defended the takedown and didn't let you get him there. So it didn't mean anything. No matter how good you were and how high a level of skill set you had on the mat, it didn't matter. You couldn't take him down. You couldn't get him there. Chimaev showed he is at a different level than anybody else at getting you there. He showed that it's almost impossible to keep him. And I know that he had the Burns fight and he had the Usman fight. I get that. But that was part of his growing. That was part of his development curve. Now he's there. I'm talking about now. Now he is a full-blown, champion. Now the process is over. He is completely developed now. And the way he looks now, forget about his skills on the mat. But we already knew that was really high quality and high level. But his ability to get you to where he wants to get you, his ability to be that panther, that predator that gets its prey and takes you to the cave. And you're not coming out of the cave. You know why he's taking you to the cave? Because he's having dinner. That's why he's taking you to the cave. And to me, that is what Chimaev represented last night. That he now is that predator that you can't stop him from taking you to the cave and having dinner. That's what he did all night. He got the takedowns, and like Rogan and DC and Attic, they do a great job. They said right on the money how fast, 20 seconds into the round, bang, he's got him on the floor. 30 seconds in, bang, he's got him on the floor. And you know that the Plessis knew that that's one place he didn't want to be. But it didn't matter what he wanted. He was not able to stop the guy from taking him into the cave. Again, forget about his grappling skills. You don't need Teddy Atlas, the boxing guy, to tell you about his grappling skills. We all know that. But his ability to get you to where he could use them. That's what impressed me. That's what stood out so big to me. And I give credit to Plessis. I know a lot of people will probably get down on him. Such a dominant performance. Just Chimaev having his way all night. But the Plessis, that last round, he gave it everything he had. And he gave himself a shot. It was a shot in the dark. But it was a shot. I give him credit for that. Nobody's giving him credit. He gave himself a shot in that last round to hurt him while he was standing, which he did catch from a pretty good shot. I was like, oh, what's going to happen here? And then on the takedown to the mat, get him into a guillotine. I think I'm referencing that hold properly, where he got him, right, Rich? He got him into a guillotine. He couldn't pull it off and complete it. But for a minute there or a second there, he gave himself a shot. He behaved like a champion at the end. So I give him credit for that. The last thing I'll say is we know how fast Chimaev is on his feet, closing the gap. Kind of like I talked about the boxing with Itauma, where it's not just his hands, but how quick his feet are to get to you. That is so impressive about Chimaev, that he gets to you so fast, he's so quick, he's so strong, but he's so good. He's so smart. He's so well-versed. He is so complete when he gets you to the floor, of not only knowing how to get you there, but knowing how to completely shut you out when he has you on that floor. We know his talent is a high level of talent, but his smarts, his technique, he is at a genius level of that.
Yeah, unbelievable performance by Chimaev. I agree with everything you said. I just add this, but he, besides having all the neon talents and the talents you just touched on physically, the strength, the wrestling, all of that, I don't know if there's a bigger intimidator, and he knows it from the mental side now. He seems like, whether it was Tyson back in the day with guys at the face-off, they lost before it even began. It's starting to feel that way. I mean, even the way he winked at Du Plessis right before the opening bell and stuck his tongue out, and the beard, his whole look, he plays into that villain character where I think mentally it's having an effect on guys besides physically with his strength and his abilities.
The mental side, that's a great point, Bud. The mental side is 75% of it. If you're the best physically, if you're the best technically, the best, you also have to be the best mentally. And he is. And that is part of his game. He is aware of it. He is, well, those guys that did it, Sonny Liston, Mike Tyson when he did it, Roberto Duran when he did it, they are all aware of the effect and impact it has on the opponents. That's why they do it.
Absolutely. And it showed, glared through all night long. And again, another extremely impressive performance. I can't wait to see what's next. That'll wrap it up, all the coverage. But before we sign off, any final thoughts?
The UFC, the one guy was a boogeyman, he lost his last fight, he's going to have a rematch, was Pereira. And that Pereira, man, he would put a hell of a freaking look on you, wouldn't he? I mean, he put a paralyzing freaking stare on guys. And I would take the risk of putting myself out on a limb and say with some of those fights, before the last one, which he lost, and he's going to have a rematch. But before those other fights, I would say that he probably did impact and affect his opponents with that stare.
No question. This is starting to feel just like that. And, everybody's talking about from the challenger, the most dominant performance in a title fight by a challenger, and it was. It reminded me a little bit in those ways of Merab when he won the belt against O'Malley. But it was just a demoralizing one-sided performance with high wrestling displayed.
And the one thing that still separates Chimaev, and you know what it is, he hasn't lost yet. That with all of that, all these other guys have a loss, except for Topuria, who it's a different weight class, different style, but I see similarities with Topuria. I really do. With everything we just talked about, skills, the development of those skills, technique, mindset, the way that just their mental capacity, the mental side. That guy is really special too. But having said all that, what is really special is you. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to do this with you, making it more fun than it would be otherwise. And thank you to our audience out there that come and want to hear what we say, even when I don't pronounce certain names correctly. They still want to hear what I think and why I think those things. I appreciate all of you, and give my love to my grandson, please. And I will
thank you, bud. Thank you for the 25-1 gift of the parlay winner. And thank you to all the viewers, as always, for joining us. Please like, comment, subscribe, and we will be back again next week with more episodes.